don't know where this like thing happened where like people think Green Day is like akin to Nickelback in any way. Like,
Yeah.
I am the Green Day truther.
Yeah. Welcome to Sleepover Cinema, where we analyze the movies, shows, and music that created the collective unconscious of those who walk a lonely road. I'm Hannah Leach.
And I'm Audrey Leach, the son of rage and love.
Today we're going to explore the good, the bad, and the nonsensical of an album that enabled a mainstream punk band to make it all the way to the Great White Way.
This week we are talking about Green Day's American Idiot.
Green Day return to Rock Australia. And to celebrate the biggest selling album of their career, American Idiot now comes as a special CD DVD pack. Summer has come featuring the new single, Wake Me Up When September. If you don't have American Idiot, then what the hell are you waiting for?
Don't wanna be an American idiot. Welcome back to Sleepover Cinema. Today we have a guest that really passionately represents the American Idiot fan community.
Keara Sullivan. She is a comedian and honestly an expert at TikTok in a way that I am envious of. I mean, she's very good at just finding these little, like, I guess they seem niche, but they're not. Like niche things that everybody knows about but aren't talked about all the time. And so everybody joins the bandwagon. Like it's very easy to engage with her content.
Her TikTok where she was making fun of Funko Pops fell into my life and I loved it. Okay, so now it is time to talk about American Idiot. American Idiot was released on September 21st, 2004, meaning this September it's going to be 20 years old, which is kind of crazy. American Idiot is generally regarded as a career comeback for Green Day. The album they had before this one was a huge flop, and we will get into, well, not a huge flop, but a relative flop. And we'll get more into that when we go into the band's history. American Idiot sold over 16 million copies worldwide, making it the second best album for the band behind their major label debut Dookie, which was in 1994, and
Dookie.
American Idiot was one of the best selling albums of the decade.
Can I just insert something that I heard yesterday? I heard in like a YouTube video, somebody claimed that Katy Perry's Witness, the album, was the album that inspired the term flop era. Like that.
I think that's true.
Yeah, because like there was flop and then, era. It's funny now because era has been taken over by Taylor Swift, but that existed. There like pop artists had eras before that. But yeah, I heard that yesterday and I was like, wait, is that true? Like, were we not saying flop era before that? I don't think we were.
No, like I don't even think, well, I remember people saying art flop.
Yeah, there was flop, but there wasn't like flop era.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. But that would make sense because I do feel like Katy Perry had an extremely harsh fall off.
Yeah. And it wasn't just, oh, this song sucks. It was like this entire artistic direction it sucks.
Yes.
Like this whole era sucks.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. Sorry, Katie. I miss like Hot Topic Katie. Like that was my favorite version. Anyway, American Idiot spawned five very successful singles, including American Idiot, Holiday, Wake Me Up When September Ends, and Boulevard of Broken Dreams, which everybody knows those, but also Jesus of Suburbia was like a successful single as well. American Idiot was nominated for Album of the Year and won the award for Best Rock Album at the 2005 Grammy Awards. It was nominated for Best Album at the European Music Awards and the Billboard Music Awards. And of course, the success of the album inspired a Broadway musical, a documentary, and a planned feature film adaptation. Rolling Stone placed it at 225 on their 2012 list of the 500 greatest albums of all time, and again in 2020 at 248. So just a little bit of background on Green Day, the band. So there's 3 members of the band. It's Billie Joe Armstrong, who's the front man, Mike Dirnt, and Trey Cool. And Billie and Mike met when they were just 14, and they formed a band. And then Trey Cool joined by 1990. So the whole lineup was confirmed in 1990. Their first album was an independent release, which sold 50,000 copies, which is wild for like an unsigned independent band. And after that, they signed and entered a long relationship with the producer Rob Cavallo, who we will talk more about later, but this man has brought so much like amazing mid-2000s, like popular pop punk type music into our lives. That album had Basket Case, Long View, When I Come Around, all on it, and then they're getting more and more successful. Then they drop Time of Your Life, and suddenly they're playing at proms, they're playing at graduations, their relevance is skyrocketing, and then they let out the album Warning, which is the flop era to which I was referring. They move on to record a 20-track album, and then the masters were stolen. And instead of trying to recreate it, they said fuck it and scrapped the whole thing, and then made American Idiot.
Can't they? I mean, I hope they pursued that criminally. I mean, that's insane.
Maybe they did.
That's crazy.
Know. It is crazy. But I guess they were like, it wasn't our best work anyway. And then just like moved on. So American Idiot is what the band described as a punk rock opera, which I would say is kind of accurate, but we'll come back to that when we talk about the music momentarily. So in the process of coming up with the concept for the album, the band listened to a bunch of different rock operas, including The Who's Tommy and David Bowie's The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and The Spiders from Mars. Billie Joe was particularly inspired by The Who, finding more in common with its power chord mod pop aesthetic than the other concept records, like in comparison with The Wall by Pink Floyd. And then of course they were listening to like Broadway musicals for inspiration as well, and then also allowing influences in like Eminem and Kanye West, as well as Linkin Park, which is just like a really funny thing to throw in there.
It's funny that they have listed West Side Story, Rocky Horror, Grease, and Jesus Christ Superstar. We're going to talk more about it later. I watched like the first 20 minutes of the American Idiot Broadway show creation documentary, and immediately I was hit with Rent comparisons and Spring Awakening comparisons. They even stole half the cast from Spring Awakening.
Well, here's the thing. The guy who directed it and wrote the book with Billie Joe is the guy who directed Spring Awakening.
But it's just funny that those shows aren't listed. Although Spring Awakening's roughly the same. It's like kind of close in time. So I get that. But Rent... like, as soon as I saw John Gallagher Jr. on top of that thing doing, like, very La Vie Boheme, it felt that.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And then the album in general was very much born out of, like, post 9/11 sentiments, like, anti-patriotism and, like, hating Bush and, like, the war in Afghanistan, the war in Iraq, like... that cultural moment, and everyone very much being like, it's a horrible time to be a young person in America, to which I say, why does it seem like it's always a horrible time to be a young person in America?
There's never gonna be a time as a young person where you enter the world and you're like, and your government and all that, and you're like, oh, this is great, nothing should change. Like, that will never happen. So it's just how it is. Yeah. No matter how much things improve, things can always be better. So it's like that feeling will never go away for young people, but that's like a core part of being a young person. So
yeah, that's true. So back to Rob Cavallo, who was the main producer on this album. I referenced that he has given us a lot of really great music. So Rob Cavallo was also like the man in charge of The Black Parade by My Chemical Romance, which there are definitely parallels between American Idiot and The Black Parade. He also worked on Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge too, if my memory serves me. Also, he worked on Brand New Eyes by Paramore. He also worked on Decode as a single, which I love. He's also the man behind Iris by the Goo Goo Dolls, so I love him for that. However, it almost is completely canceled out by the fact that he was the force behind The Best Damn Thing by Avril Lavigne, which was an album that personally shattered my heart because it was not the Avril I wanted at the time.
Was that Pink when she went pink?
Yeah.
Okay. In retrospect, it's like the best damn thing isn't the most offensive thing.
No, it's not. But it still was not the tea.
Were you that upset?
Yes, I remember very clearly being disappointed when I saw the artwork for it.
Yeah.
And then listened to it. I was like, this is not.
Which is so strange because, like, typically no, we wouldn't be mad at, like, a pink punk type aesthetic, but it was just because it was like too much of a change to feel authentic, maybe. I don't know.
I think it was also that it seemed like she was regressing in terms of maturity.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I didn't want the music to get, like, less mature.
Yeah.
But also I was, like,
Girlfriend,
11.
right?
Yeah, Girlfriend was the lead single, and I was like, no way.
That was not good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun now, but at the time it was like, okay, no.
No, I was gagged in a bad way. So can you take us through these reviews? They're all, like, very legible.
Here are the reviews from critics. AllMusic said, in its musical muscle and sweeping politically charged narrative, it's something of a masterpiece, and one of the few, if not the only, records of 2004 to convey what it feels like to live in the strange, bewildering America of the early 2000s. Rolling Stone said, against all odds, Green Day have found a way to hit their 30s without either betraying their original spirit or falling on their faces. The Village Voice Consumer Guide said, there's no economics, no race, hardly any compassion. Joe name checks America as if his hometown of Berkeley was in the middle of it, then name checks Jesus as if he's never met anyone who's attended church, and to lend his maunderings rock grandeur, he ties them together with devices that sunk under their own weight back when The Who invented them. That is quite a sentence.
Yes, it
Holy
is.
crap.
They were not happy about it.
Okay, and then reviews from fans, and these are all from 2004?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Somebody said, what could we say about this brand new album? The best of the 2000s and one of the greatest albums of all time. It has everything. It is more powerful, catchier, and crazier than the predecessors. A job well done. The second best album released by Green Day. I was absolutely shocked and disgusted at how disappointing this album was, as this was recommended to me by a friend with normal good taste in music.
Normal.
Someone else said, don't get me wrong, it's a good solid album, but there is no way that it lives up to the extensive hype it's being given, especially given their political views. I just feel that this album is getting excess acclaim because it is fashionable to be anti-imperialist these days. If you don't consider the political message, they just aren't making good music on this album. This CD is bad. Seriously. Have you ever listened to their older stuff? They went from amazing to crap in a matter of a few years. If you like this CD, then you're probably a 10-year-old goth kid who thinks they're being rebellious. There's nothing hardcore about this album. They went from being smart and catchy to stereotypical and cliche. If you listened to any albums before Nimrod, then you will agree that this CD is just horrible.
I love it being referred to as a CD only.
Yeah.
That's perfect. I could really go down the rabbit hole fully about the musical because I watched a whole documentary about its creation, but really all you need to know is that it premiered in 2010. It was directed by Michael Mayer, who we talked about earlier, and Michael and Billie Joe were, like, very clearly, like, up each other's butts about this, frankly. Like, when you watch the documentary, it's just like, it's like really self-congratulatory, but also just really funny because it's, before it was like unchic to be a white guy, and now it very much is not chic. The documentary that I watched just really embodies, like, the white man delusion of gay and straight white guys to infinity and beyond.
And that's the funny part of this particular era of white man punk music is like, it kind of sounds like they just realized there's injustice yesterday.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Are you dumb?
Yeah.
Like, you're 30 and you're like just realizing these things. I guess better late than never. I did hear in the doc that like, and they kind of, I just said it in a review, like they grew up in Berkeley. We're a liberal already.
Yeah.
We're aware of political uprisings, and I think maybe it's just because now it's 2024 and things have changed so much that I'm like, oh, this feels super elementary.
Politically, things have just evolved so much, especially with the internet, that
Yeah.
it is just like different.
Yeah.
But
like,
yeah,
you
I
could be
agree.
30 at the time as a white
Yeah.
man. Things that were moving so much slower and the media was so much more controlled. It's like maybe it did take longer to
Yeah.
realize
well, I feel
things.
like we'll probably end up talking about this in the second half, but I think a lot of the issues that came up like around 9/11 and right after were like white people, not white people problems, but they weren't like civil rights issues. All this being said, there's a lot of really funny pictures from the premiere of the show, including Lady Gaga and the Trumps being on the same, it's a black carpet, not a red carpet, but apparently Donald Trump liked it. So we'll talk more about that in the second half. Some tweets that I found. First one, quote, I'm bisexual. Yeah, we could tell. Your favorite Green Day album is American Idiot. Just had a perfect night. 38 Advils and the clean version of American Idiot. I truly and unironically believe most, if not all, characters written by white men can be summarized by a song on Green Day's American Idiot album. And if you think I don't have several examples, you're new here. I got into hardcore through this. I got into hardcore through that. What if I told you I got into hardcore through American Idiot the musical? What then? And then lastly, I could fix him, parentheses, the American Idiot musical.
Memories. I have almost none, so you go ahead.
I mean, I feel like there is one most dominant memory.
Right. Yeah. I didn't even, I
dance
forgot about that.
class.
Yeah, which we've mentioned this now like sore like sore many times.
Yeah.
On this podcast, but in case you haven't heard it, somehow we had a jazz dance to Holiday. And our other one was Maroon 5, so that was a different story. But right, we only had one.
Yes. I think we might have done like a dance in class that was like for class only to like Boulevard of Broken Dreams or something. Yeah. But yeah, we were rocking with like songs about Jane and American Idiot in dance class like very hard.
Basically the situation though is that we only had, like, I didn't have the whole album, like I had Holiday.
Yeah, that's how it was for a long time. And we were like little kids.
Yeah.
Which is funny.
I was probably 7.
Also, the bridge has like crazy lyrics in it. But I think we had the clean version. So like, I don't know what we heard.
I didn't really know what they were saying anyway, because there's like diction issues.
I looked up the lyrics earlier today because I've heard this song 10 billion times.
I read them as I was listening.
Yeah. And it's a discovery to find out what they're actually saying. You know how they say the F slur a lot?
Yeah.
I checked their 2024 performances and they still say it.
That'd one of them's gay.
Yeah, that's gotta be it. They get the pass.
He's bi? I don't know.
That'd be so funny. Like, do you get a pass if you're like a bi man to say it? Other memories, I remember this album being like very much excluded from like the canon of stuff that like me and my friends were openly into in like middle school.
Like rare. Like you would think based off everything else you were interested in that this would have fallen in.
I know. I think for some reason Green Day was really sorted into the pile of like being really corny. I think I do remember like trying to give the entire album like a real listen. I struggled, which is sad. I also remember seeing a like equity performance of American Idiot at like a theater in the greater Cleveland area when I think it was at the Beck Center or something when I was in high school. But I remember being like, this show fucking sucks.
Yeah. I wish I had seen it because then I could actually have a comment on that. But from the little bits I have seen, it's like, this feels like Rent and Spring Awakening had a baby. And
Yeah.
I don't. And also somewhere in there, like Rock of Ages or like, you know, just corny. Like a cornier element. Because like
Rock of Ages.
Spring Awakening is not corny to me. I don't perceive it as corny. Rent can absolutely be corny. But I think given the right circumstances, maybe you can evade it a little bit. I think Rent is just more corny now. Probably back then. I mean, don't know.
Yes.
It's all Broadway, so it's like
I think
corny.
also, I mean, our Rent episode we did so long ago, but like Rent was like doing something relevant to the time in a way that was like, I think a little bit more hopeful. Like American Idiot is not really hopeful on like it's
no, there's
like,
no turn for the hopeful. Like it's okay to like say like fuck the system or whatever, but that is truly the whole work. Like the whole work is pretty much, I mean, some of the songs are just more personal. So like it's less about the country and more about like him. Yeah, Rent definitely tries to swing things up a little bit.
Yes.
I mean, literally, she doesn't die. She literally comes back to life practically.
Yeah. But that also was adapted from an opera. So at least it had that structurally.
Yeah. Maybe not the most responsible, but...
No, definitely not. American Idiot. Available on streaming platforms, available on YouTube, etc. Give it a listen.
We'll be right back with Keara.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. And we have Keara Sullivan with us. Yay!
Thank you so much for having me.
First of all, you are a preeminent scholar on American Idiot. And I cannot wait to hear everything that you think and feel about this album, because I'm sure there's a lot. Before we do that, though, for lack of a better phrasing, like, who are you? What do you do? Like how would someone who listens to our show potentially know who you are through the internet?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Hannah. My name's my name's Keara Sullivan. I'm a comedian living in Brooklyn, New York. You may have seen me do stand-up around the city. I'm kind of a woman about town, and I also have a TikTok that people may know me under the name Super Keara, which is my username for all my socials because it's the email account I came up with in the 4th grade and then used for every single social media account. So they may know me as Super Keara on TikTok, Instagram. It's me. That's me across all socials. And then I also have a Substack. So yeah, I guess I'm just kind of a Renaissance woman about town. And you don't know me, you must live under a rock. I'm sorry, you're not tapped into culture.
A while back, I saw, maybe on Twitter, I don't remember where, but you talking about how you've been compared to Kay Panabaker.
Yeah, I look
a lot.
The crazy thing is that, like, I don't actually look like Kay Panabaker, the adult. Like Kay Panabaker. I look like,
but specifically read it.
12-year-old Kay Panabaker on Phil of the Future. I'm identical to. Like, I actually look more like Kay Panabaker at that age than she does. And I think a lot of people, like, they think that, because it makes sense. Like this is just what her face would grow into because it's the same.
Yeah, you're the evolution.
No, but she's a zoologist now, and she's thriving and living her best life. Good for her. I just can't really escape from her massive Titanic shadow that she cast in the culture.
That's so funny because I actually think there was something like swirling around in the back of my mind about you looking especially familiar, and I couldn't place what it is, and I do think that that's what it is now that you say it.
I think it really is.
Yeah.
You should make a Cameo account and just pose as Kay
It's
Panabaker.
so interesting. I get Kay Panabaker a lot. I get Judy Garland sometimes. And then recently
big.
Ooh, that's a good
recently
one.
I've gotten so much Drew Barrymore. I don't
Whoa.
look like Drew Barrymore. I think I just sound, I think we have the same kind of like low raspy voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe we have like a similar cadence because it confuses me because
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't look like her. And her whole thing is like being really kind and like living the reins. That's definitely not my thing. So I think it's a Sonic thing.
Yeah, and you're not doing the whole side mouth thing. You're not doing all
Yeah,
that.
that's also, yeah, exactly. I get that all. I think I just have a low voice for a woman and it's raspy. So they're like, you sound like Jennifer Lawrence or like Drew Barrymore or like the only
Oh,
other
yeah.
two women we know that have like kind of low raspy voices.
Yeah. When we were coming up with ideas of what to work on for this episode, you were very excited that we landed on American Idiot. And I'm very curious about why that is. Like, what's your history with this album?
The first thing I wrote was like American Idiot. The
Yeah.
album.
Yeah.
The whole, not the song,
Yes.
the album by Green Day. This is literally the song that like saved my life in middle school. I can't, you know how like there are those albums that just like find you at like and in like such a specific time in your life. Like I cannot emphasize enough how much just like Green Day as a band in general, but also like specifically American Idiot was like me at like the most clinically depressed,
Aww.
mentally ill I have ever been. It's so funny because like even though I listened to it at my worst, I still when I listen to it now, it's just like such a comfort album for me. I listened to it so many times that like if I want to skip directly like through Extraordinary Girl and get to Letter Bomb, I my finger does it and I land.
Yeah.
Muscle and memory. This album is in my bones. It's in my DNA. Green Day especially. I went through such a big Green Day phase. But then like also this album, so important to me, so important to my lore. Made me the woman I am today.
Yeah. So one thing that we'll end up like circling back to, I think a few times, like, was it the vibe of it? It wasn't like the political message of it for you as a middle schooler,
No,
right?
I wasn't like 13 years old being like, yeah, fuck the Iraq war. Like I was like my parents were against it, but like that it was not like the political messaging of it. It was very much like Jesus of suburbia and like all and like homecoming and just it was like in seventh grade. I was going through such a hard transitional time of like I was friends with like the popular group of girls and then suddenly was getting like pulled away and like was kind of I don't know, like transitioning friend groups in middle school is such like a deeply painful process. And like
Yes.
it was like this time where I was just like so depressed and felt so excluded and I didn't know why. And it was definitely because I was like severely mentally ill, like depressed. I'm like not fun to be around. I'm like not a good time. So like to them, they're lovely girls, but like I really did end up finding like transitioning to like the most amazing friend group in the world that I'm still like best friends with to this day. But it was just such a painful period. Again, like not to like harp on the mentally ill thing, but I was like clinically depressed, like with an eating disorder. I was like, I got kind of lucky in the sense of like a lot of people's like mental health strikes at like 19. Mine hit at like 12.
Wow.
And by 15, I was over.
Wow.
I was like, I've done my time. And like, actually, I'm perfect now. It was actually kind of nice in the sense of a lot of my like friends went through it in high school or later on in college. And I kind of became like this sage of mental health, of being like, I was kind of the person they turned to of like, I know you went through this, and I'd kind of come out the other side and like had a lot of perspective on it, but I really could not have done it without Green Day. It was just so much of the album is just like about feeling excluded or feeling like you want to be somewhere else and like you hate your life in the suburbs and like life sucks. And it was this album also along with like Dookie. And I really like the way Green Day sings about women. They really get me.
Yeah.
The song She off of
Mhm.
Dookie was also like a really big song for
Yeah.
me. And I was like, this man gets me. Billy Joe gets what I'm going through. I just felt very
Uh,
seen by their whole discography at that
yeah.
age. And that I kind of am eternally standing them forever. I remember one time in college, I was wearing a Green Day shirt because I've been to the concerts because I have the merch.
Yeah.
Because again, like I'm not new to this, I'm true to this. And in college, this guy was like, I like your shirt. And I was like, thanks. And he was like, is it ironic? And I went,
Oh,
no.
no.
I went, no, Green Day rules. And he went, I can't tell if you're being ironic right now. And I was like, I'm not. Green Day rules. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Wait, so did you go to NYU also?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a very NYU circumstance to find
I
yourself
went to
in.
NYU film. I was just fully like an NYU film boy being like, I can't tell if your Green Day shirt is ironic.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well, I can't tell if your short film is ironic.
Right.
Oh, seriously.
Right. I had a friend, so I was in dramatic writing, and
Oh.
and I had a friend who I made in that program who, like, so I grew up really, and still do, but like really loving like My Chemical Romance and Paramore and like all those bands. And
Yes.
she like very, very, very sincerely would wear MCR merch like all the
Oh
time.
yeah.
And
Oh yeah,
even
brother.
when I first met her, I was kind of like, I sort of had the same question as the film guy. I was like, is this like real? And then I very quickly was like, oh yeah. Like this is very genuine. And I kind of loved that for her and for
Well,
us.
it's also this thing of like I don't know where this like thing happened where like people think Green Day is like akin to Nickelback in any way. Like
Yeah.
I don't know genuinely like where this came from, but like I am a Green Day truther.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, they're not cringe. I don't know how this narrative like got into the cultural water, but it's not true.
Han, were you going to say, do you think the musical contributes?
Well,
That might have been it.
I was gonna say that I feel like the musical, like for some people would definitely do it, but I also think like it kind of happened with MCR too, where you verge into like the song like 21 Guns, I think kind of tipped it into like that territory.
I think it's also just this thing of like most people when they discover bands like Green Day and My Chemical Romance are in middle school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And middle school is such an awful, deeply cringe time in your life. But like any band that like was popular with middle schoolers, it becomes cringe in hindsight.
Yeah.
But then I think you get to a point where like you loop back around and you're like, okay, actually the album's still good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Actually, I wasn't just 12 years old. Actually, there's something here.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the age group that like first discovers Green Day and gets really into it.
Yes.
Maybe the cringe has more to do with self-cringe than the music itself, because it's not like the music changes over time. You change. So like,
Yeah, and it's like
you'll come
when
back
you-
to it.
When you were most like intense about this band was also the time where like you were the most embarrassing version of yourself. So you're like,
Yes.
and you weren't cool at all. So you're like, oh, then Green Day must not be cool because I loved them. But
Right.
no, actually no.
You had taste.
Were you a Hot Topic queen or no?
I was not a Hot Topic queen, but I did go to Warped Tour one year.
That's
I was a
nice.
it was Green Day and like All Time Low.
Yeah.
Blink-182, My Chemical Romance. They were all in there.
Do you remember
Great
what
times.
year?
No, I don't. I remember I think it was like my freshman year of high school that I went.
Okay.
So I think that was like 2014.
Wow.
Or maybe I
It's
was
kind of late.
I was either
For
like
Warped.
I do remember that I think it like stopped like maybe like 3 years later.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So basically, you're 2 years younger than me, 4 years younger than him.
Yeah.
Yes,
think.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
young for my grade. I didn't go to preschool. That's my lore.
Nice. You were
I
too
was-
smart.
I was not even that. It's just like preschool is actually more about just like socializing your child so they don't like
Yeah.
bite
Yeah.
people in kindergarten.
It's
Whereas like
so
I
true.
kind of already had a crew, like a neighborhood posse.
Yeah.
I had a crew that I rolled with. My parents like toured some preschools, and this was also like when like preschool was also like out of pocket. There was
Yeah.
no like universal pre-K, so you had to pay for it. So my parents were like, number one, we don't fucking pay for like our kid who can already read and has friends to go to
Yeah.
preschool. And like all of it was them touring these like windowless church basements, being like, so
Yeah.
here's the like military medical tent style cot where your child will
Yes.
sleep
Yeah.
during nap
Yes.
time. And they were like, I think Keara doesn't need this.
Yeah.
And I didn't.
Do you have siblings?
Yeah.
Like, where are
I have
you?
two sisters. Wait,
Oh.
can you guys guess? I always like asking this. I have two sisters.
I actually forgot because I just was watching a bunch of your TikToks, so I know the answer. But Audrey, do you know the answer?
I don't. Wait, you have two sisters, right?
I have two
That's it.
sisters.
Okay. I get oldest or middle.
I am the middle child, and the reason I ask that is just because everyone usually guesses middle child first.
Really?
Everyone always guesses middle. I don't know what it is. So I like to just like see if the trend continues.
Yeah.
I think I would
Yeah.
guess oldest if I didn't know.
It's kind of like I am the middle child, but the dynamic between me and my sisters is so like Caitlin, my older sister, was so like shy and sweet and kind as a child. And I very much came in and I was like, I'm the alpha now. So
Yeah.
it was like not the traditional like older. I was very much like the Serena Williams to her Venus. I was
Yeah.
like, I need to defeat her.
Yeah.
And she was like, I love my little sister. So it was not like the normal. I was definitely not like the overlooked middle child
Got it.
per se.
Got it.
I was
Right.
a presence in the household.
Yeah, that's why I'm like oldest or middle, because for that reason, like you don't have a personality that could be easily overlooked, I feel like, in a family. So
Yeah,
that's why.
exactly.
Yeah.
times.
We just have each other. There's no other siblings in our family.
And that's a bond. Sisters by blood, friends by choice.
No,
So
truly.
true.
Let's speak on that.
So true. Talking about the musical, I want to like get into the real cringe of it, but I need to know if you were a theater kid.
I was not okay. So like growing up as a kid, I did like I did adventure theater camp every single summer. So
Okay.
like I did musical theater over the summer at camp, and then in elementary school, I was the Scarecrow in the fourth grade production of Wizard of Oz, which was a contentious year. I really beat out a lot of competition, not to toot my own horn, but I never did it in. But I kind of decided I wouldn't take my career into middle school or high school.
Got
I
it.
didn't do it like in any kind of academic space.
Was there a reason why?
I wanted a separation between my arts and my education.
Got it.
No, I don't know. I think it was just like none of my friends were doing
Yeah.
it. I didn't want to like do a thing that like no one I knew was doing. I had like other extracurriculars I was into.
Yeah.
It was just kind of
The
like
call
one of those
wasn't
things.
the call wasn't strong enough.
Yeah, I didn't feel the call at the stage.
Call to the stage. Yeah.
I'm also just like not a great like I can sing, but I have no range. I have no vocal range.
Okay.
Like it's really ridiculous. So like I guess like I would get like I could never be like the lead.
Yeah.
And I knew that. And I was like, I'm not wasting my time being fucking like ensemble.
Oh, bitch.
I think maybe that was it.
There's nothing quite as humbling, honestly.
There
Especially
really
when
isn't.
you're like older in high school.
It's like you're a
Yeah.
junior. It's like, goddamn. Like,
Goddamn. So even though you weren't a theater kid, like what was your awareness of American Idiot the musical? Like
I went to see it
You
when it came
did?
to when it came to DC. Yeah, I did, of course, because like I was in the lore. I watched the documentary you sent me.
Yeah.
I had watched that in middle
Yeah.
school. I was in that age of like, just like obsession with this band where I was watching every single interview
Yeah.
Green Day had ever given.
yeah.
So yeah, I was aware of the American Idiot
Yeah.
musical. I was tapped in.
Yeah.
This spring, Broadway's ready to rock.
Don't wanna be an American idiot.
Green Day's American Idiot.
Don't want a nation under the new media.
The decade's biggest album is Broadway's newest musical.
Television dreams of tomorrow.
American Idiot begins March 24th at the St. James Theater. Visit telecharge.com.
I was tapped into everything Green Day was doing.
Aw. So what did you like? Were you living for it when you saw it?
That was okay.
Okay.
I wanted to see it for sure. As a fan, I had to like do my due diligence.
Yeah.
but I wasn't like, that was amazing. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't remember feeling like really any kind of way about it, which is saying something because I'm
Yes.
like a super Green Day fan. And I left that being like, that's fine.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
kind of good to know though, because like I didn't get all the way through the doc. I got like halfway through it. And it was really giving me like Rent and Spring Awakening energy, those two shows kind of put together. And when you are taking an already established band's music and an entire album and you're going to kind of place it on a story using actors that we don't particularly know or care about, it's kind of setting up a super fan to feel like meh about it because the soul has been transferred to something
I think
else.
there's also just something of like, there's something about like Broadway that doesn't or like putting it into like a musical show thing on or off Broadway that doesn't really like quite work with, I think, the ethos of like Green Day and American Idiot in the sense of like obviously like a lot of bands when they get famous like their music becomes like pretty more mainstream, but like Green Day very much started off, and I still consider them like a punk band. Like their early stuff is very kind of like classic 90s punk. Like you see the same kind of throw like Blink 182 and like all those kinds of bands that eventually kind of turned into like pop punk, but they started off like very much like a punk band in like Oakland, California. And even as their music got like more pop punk and like mainstream sounding, like the messages in there are still very much like a part of that ethos. Like the American Idiot, like the political perspective of it is like very similar to like what the Sex Pistols were doing like in England. Like so much of like the ethos of punk is being like, fuck the police, fuck the government, I hate you all, you're fucking idiots, I'm not gonna be like you. And like that's like the entire kind of ethos of punk. And I think one that like Green Day carried through, like even through American Idiot, even though it was like a big, huge, like mega hit. And I think there's something about that that doesn't quite work with like the overproduced nature of a Broadway musical. Like making it a production, selling tickets. It just doesn't like, I don't know how to put it other than like, I just don't, it like, I know it's a rock opera, but like, you don't really believe the characters or believe anything that they're saying on stage. There's something that doesn't quite mesh with that.
Well, and it's also really weird because so now I'm kind of a scholar on this because I've really watched some things over the past few days, but like the way it becomes like really literal. It's like one of the guys gets into drugs. One of the guys gets stuck in the town with his pregnant girlfriend that he's like hating on. And then the other one becomes addicted to drugs. And it's just very like, it's extremely literal. Like it's extremely literal. And I just find that to be a loss. But at the same time, I'm like, did they just want it to be really digestible for like whatever random family is in New York, you know?
Like there's kind of a through line in the album, but it's not like Saint Jimmy and what's her name like in the show are like characters, whereas like in the album they're more kind of like ideas.
Right.
Like Saint Jimmy is like your destructive part of you. Whereas in the show, he's still that. But he's also a person. He also comes out and sins as well.
He like possesses the main guy, basically.
Like seems to be some sort of demon.
And occasionally played by Billie Joe himself.
Billie Joe
What?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that part.
Oh, yeah. Oh. It's like maybe 80% of the way through the documentary, they talk about him like playing the role, and then when I was looking on the Wikipedia page, it was like occasionally he would pop in and play the role. Like it wouldn't like he would just show up and do it. I
actually did not realize this before, but I've been chewing on this now. I think part of the reason it doesn't work as like an onstage musical is the album in album form is very much like one person. Like it is a singular
From
experience.
a fixed perspective, yeah.
Yeah, and like the reason I related to it, like at that age, is like this one person talking about how lonely they are, how depressed they are, like how sad they are, and like you can't really do that in like a group of people. It's
Yeah.
about someone who's like
Yeah,
very,
isolated.
it's very much about someone who like feels isolated from the community they're in and is doing destructive things and doesn't feel like they have that. And so I feel like it really doesn't work when you like put an ensemble next to him.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, it's like
Boulevard of Broken Dreams is like, I walk alone. Like,
Yeah.
one of the core messages of that entire album is like, I'm lonely, I'm alone.
Yeah.
And the whole show, there's just people dancing around him. And it's just like, it just that doesn't really work.
yeah.
I just heard, as I was just watching, the idea was that Boulevard of Broken Dreams was the I Want song of the show.
I saw that.
I was like, I kind of feel like I Want songs need to be crafted as I Want songs. Like
Yeah.
you cannot say, you can't take a pre-existing work. Like it's a very specific musical theater form, the I Want song. You can't just say that this pre-existing song is an I Want song when he's saying I walk alone. Oh, okay.
You know what it is though? I think I can see. Hold on, I'm pulling up the lyrics.
I can see why they chose it as the I Want song if they had to, but I'm kind of surprised they didn't write a few originals with Green Day just to piece this whole thing together, right?
The only thing like Boulevard of Broken Dreams works for as an I Want song is like if your want is to kill yourself. Like, I wanted that.
Well,
and that's not what he's talking about.
what
in the
I am
show.
seeing here, what I think this tiny nugget would be that they would use as the I Want element is at the second half of the chorus, sometimes I wish someone out there will find me, till then I walk alone. So it's like, I wish someone will find me, but until someone finds me, I walk alone. Like,
Yeah,
that's
well,
the
that's
They
reach.
used it in the show to like introduce the love interest.
Yeah.
They did, yeah.
That's such a funny reach. But yes, original music wise. Okay, wait. So you would know this, Keara. Like when I was listening to the album, it seemed like to me there's all like those small songs in like the 9-minute stretches. But and maybe you know this, maybe you wouldn't. But like, did they flesh out those tiny songs to be bigger for the musical?
So all of those songs are only 2 songs. So like Extraordinary Girl, Letter Bomb, Are We the Waiting St. Jimmy, Give Me Novocaine, and then
She's a Rebel.
And then She's a Rebel. It's all slower songs.
Okay.
Those are all the first songs. And then the second half is like a more upbeat song.
Okay, got it. So they just went with it as it was? Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah, so they did, I don't think they really
Split
did
'em up.
any editing to like
Got it.
fleshing out the songs. Like the only edit I think I can think of is I think combined She's a Rebel. I think they did that as a mashup. They did She's a Rebel with Last of the American Girls, which is a song on 21st Century Breakdown.
Okay.
They added some songs that like they didn't write anything with Green Day.
Yeah.
It was all like either songs that were like cut from like the deluxe version of the album or songs that were on 21st Century Breakdown that they had already written.
Like 21
got it.
Guns.
Like 21 Guns.
Wait, that reminds me of I know we're talking about the musical so much, but like the section of the documentary where they're like recording the vocals for 21 Guns and like giving the girl feedback, and then the girl sings it again and she's like clearly so nervous, and I'm like, this is such a weird thing to watch, knowing like where that music started and like where it came from, you know? Like it just is so different.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
The whole thing. The whole process of watching the documentary was tough.
Yeah. I was very
Did they say in there, because this whole thing, it's a collaboration, like I'm sure Michael Mayer really wanted to do it, but also it is for money, like this is a business.
Yeah.
Did they say who hired, who's reaching out, who really put this collaboration together?
So my understanding from the documentary is that Michael Mayer and like his co-creators or whatever like came up with the idea and like started making it, and then were like in the DMs of Green Day like, we're doing this, hope that that's okay, and like they had already done all this work and were waiting to get the approval. And then once they gave the approval, they were like, actually, well, Billie Joe was like, actually, I want to be involved in creating this too. And then it became like a team thing. But it started off just like a crapshoot, which I think is bold.
I think like actually like Green Day is a good band to do it with, in the sense of like they would never do it on their own, and like they're such like blasé guys that like you hear Billie Joe being like, what the hell, like I don't know if this is gonna work, but like I'll try it, whatever, let's do it. I never thought I'd be doing this, but here we are. Like it's not necessarily like
not the first person you'd think of.
Exactly.
So as a longtime fan of Green Day, like what is your impression of like Billie Joe Armstrong as like a person? Because it's hard to tell, like I know you don't know the man, but you may as well know the man from a fan standpoint, like because when I was watching the documentary I was like, is he a douche? Like I can't really tell. Like what is the impression you have?
I don't think he's a douche. I think well, I mean, I might be biased because I have like seen all of their interviews and I was like obsessed with the band. But I think like, at least in terms of like, I don't know how he like acts with people, but in terms of like his morals and his moral compass, like he's always been an advocate of the right things. He's always like, especially like he's bisexual. The punk space is very much like an LGBTQ space. He's like he had like trans people opening for Green Day in like the early 90s. He's always been
that's cool.
Like he's really always like platformed people and kind of just advocated like on the right side of history for the most part. And I think the only way they come off as douches is like just that general way that like men in punk come off, where they're like fuck everything and you're like, oh whatever, nihilist. But like I think that's just kind of like the ethos they live by. And I think it's also like, I don't think it's an act. Like I think very much like they genuinely believe, like I think like when they wrote like American Idiot, the song, they were genuinely like, fuck you, George. I genuinely believe that like they want to kill George Bush. They absolutely like hate that man, like no doubt. I think it's just one of those things of like a lot of punk is being like, fuck this and fuck that. Like that comes off douchey. But I think like it actually comes from a place of their morals being in a right place and feeling very angry by like the country and government you're in acting against those morals.
Yes. That's good to know.
That's
I didn't know that. That was a good take. Also, you mentioning
in the first half,
you mentioning that he was bi is so good, because in the first half we were talking about the use of the F slur American Idiot, and Audrey was like, maybe he's bi, and then we were talking about like as a bi
like,
man,
he must
do you
be,
get
right?
the
Like,
pass? We were just being stupid about that. But
no, but he has a song on Dookie called Coming Clean, which is literally about him at 17 like coming out as bi to his parents. And I think he uses that word because like people have called him that word. Like he is like a punk singer who like wears, like he was really synonymous with like guy liner at that time. Like he's absolutely like not like I think in his mind, he like, though he's not a gay man, like he has been called that and he is bisexual. And I think in that moment it's him reclaiming it and be like, I don't even like, I don't care. Like, so what? Like, you're an idiot. At least I don't have fucking worms for brains like you. I feel like I've really done a deep dive in my history of just like all the lore surrounding like him and his family. And like, he's had the same wife since he was 18. Like he's had the Green Day, the three of them have been together since they were 18. Like, it really seems like he doesn't burn the people he knows. Like he has long-lasting relationships. Seems like a good dad to his kids. Like, and also like it seems like he has really cool morals. So like,
so we love him basically.
Like I'm actually kind of a stan.
When I was like putting the notes together for the first half, I was so struck by the fact that it's just been those three guys forever.
That's so rare.
That's so nice.
Yeah, and not only like three guys forever, no animosity between them. They love each other. And also like the same wife since he was 18. That's also incredibly rare. Like, it's really crazy.
With the rock and
Without
roll
even, like,
lifestyle and everything.
With the rock and roll lifestyle of Korean elite.
Yeah.
I want to talk more specifically about like your favorite songs on the album and stuff like that. So maybe, okay, let's talk about that. And then I want to talk after that about like the post 9/11 of it all, because the political part. Yeah. So, okay. So just to get back to the album itself for a little bit, what are your top 3 tracks if you had to pick?
Okay, I think it's going to be, I know the top 2 are definitely Jesus of Suburbia and Letter Bomb.
Okay.
So Letter Bomb is one of like the slash songs on the end of it. Let me just look at the album because I need to look at it all in full. I think I'd have to go with, and then I think it might be like a tie between American Idiot and like Wake Me Up When September Ends. Talk about a classic.
I know.
I like listened to it again. I think it might be actually Wake Me Up When September Ends.
Yeah.
Like I was re-listening to that song for this podcast and I was like, oh my god, I forgot how hard this goes. This rules.
Yeah.
I think for me it's Jesus of Suburbia, Letter Bomb, Wake Me Up When September Ends.
Okay. Yeah. Wake Me Up When September Ends is like crazy good.
Crazy good. It's about his dad dying.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
Yeah.
It's just like a perfect song. I'm
It
like, wow, I'm
is.
moved as hell.
It is. Yeah, he's just like a really good songwriter, which I think that not that many people necessarily know.
Like recognize.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that song is so damn good. I think that it's situations like with that song where like with limited context, it's so catchy that I guess I could see why people could eventually drift and think that they're like a Nickelback contemporary, just in terms of like top 40 radio play and stuff like that.
If there's like an emotional top 40 rock song, you're like, rock shouldn't have emotion. Rock should be about like grit and dirt and rock and roll lifestyle.
Yes. This is unrelated but kind of related. Over the past like 6 months, I've really gotten into listening to like the top hits of Daughtry again.
Hell yeah,
They're so good. Like, have you listened to them recently? Like, they're so damn good. It's so funny.
Good stuff. I've got a playlist for you.
Please.
Because me and my friend Genevieve, we made this when we were 15. We're still adding it to this day. We have this playlist called Emotional Rock of the 2000s.
That sounds
Because we were
great.
talking about how like we were like, remember that time like where just like white men, instead of like becoming DJs on SoundCloud, just like talked about how sad they were in like soft emotional rock songs.
Yeah.
And Daughtry's on there. Daughtry's on there for sure.
That's what I need. My number one of that genre is probably Lips of an Angel, though. I love the song Lips of an Angel. Do you know that song?
I think that might be on the playlist.
I'm sure
honestly.
it
I
is.
think Genevieve added that.
Oh, God. I love that song. If you had to pick a least favorite, like a skip, if you have a skip, like what would it be?
I have skips. Extraordinary Girl really doesn't do anything for me.
Okay.
And I think I've got to do that as my skip because Letter Bomb is one of my favorite songs. So like I know I have skipped that the most probably of
Right.
I have like literally
Yeah.
skipped to Letter Bomb in the
track.
song. So like it just doesn't hit.
Got it. Now for like the political element of it. So while like when I was watching the documentary and also as I was like doing the research for this, there's a lot of like allusions to like post 9/11 America and like what that really meant. And a lot of people talking about how like it's such a fucked up time to be a young person and all that. And I'm like, on one hand, I'm just like, is now worse? Like I can't really tell. I feel like
Yeah.
but
also who knows?
just in that it's like there's more shit. Like so much has happened in the past 5 years that it's like high schoolers now I'm like I feel bad for in some ways.
The closest we came to this moment was like probably Trump winning the election in 2016. And I think we're in a similar moment. I think 9/11, the post 9/11 era was such a very specific, uniquely moment.
Yeah.
Uniquely, that's not a word. It was a very unique moment in the sense of like, I don't think we as a country have ever been like all like so brainwashed by propaganda.
Right.
Like all at once. Like everyone was for the Iraq war.
Yeah.
Like my parents, when they talk about it, they were like, we were not for the Iraq war. Like, we thought it was a bad idea back then, but like, we were the only ones of our friends who did.
Yeah.
Like, people were very pissed off, very much like ready to charge into like whatever fucking country they like, and anyone thought like George Bush told us to. Like, I think it's like just one of those moments of like mass agreement to like in support of a bad thing that like actually only ever comes during like war times or after a terrorist attack.
Yeah. I kind of wonder now what would happen in a situation like that. You know how like 9/11 jokes are so much of a thing now? Like, I'm not like staunchly against them, but I'm like, damn, like I get why people that are older like don't like them.
I just don't really think they're like funny most of the time.
Yeah, right.
Like, it's not that like I'm like so, it's like, again, like I don't remember it at all.
Yeah, me either.
Like, I don't have any memory of 9/11, and actually the defining trait of Gen Z, which I'm like kind of at the older cusp of Gen Z, is you don't remember 9/11.
Yeah.
You're too young to remember it.
Yeah.
And that's like actually the divide, but 9/11 is actually like the true divide between Gen Z and millennials, which is very interesting. True. I just think like most of the time it's just like stupid memes.
Yes.
I like a 98% of the time it's just like not a funny joke.
No, you're right.
And it just feels like 13-year-old like edgelord humor.
Yeah. I have literally a graphic from the Pew Research Center that is related to this.
Research.
Which, when you were saying, I just put it in the chat. When you were saying that it was like one of these rare times where everyone just agreed on a bad idea, like based on circumstances. Yeah. This is a graph of trust in the government.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can see the spike, like the 2001 spike, and then it goes all like back down again. It was just really interesting. Like, I feel like this is something I really wasn't that aware of, is that there was kind of like this mass agreement and then the mass fallout kind of right after. And that is like what American Idiot was kind of born out of.
And also, Lindsay Ellis has a really good video essay, like specifically on like protest music of the Bush era. 2004 is when American Idiot comes out. 9/11 happens in 2001. The kind of like protest music in between like American Idiot and 9/11 is very much like Black Eyed Peas, like, where is the love? Kind of like very much like white people singing about like, give peace a chance. Like, it's just like about like love, if we all held hands, like, stop.
We are the world vibe.
very like, we are the world, where is the love? Like, very like vague, like, stop the wars and fighting and like love. And I think what happens in 2004 and like the way I think Green Day was kind of the perfect vessel for this to come is just like, you kind of need in like any political movement a side that's kind of like hippie and like, where is the love? But you also very much need a side that's like, what the fuck are we doing? Because everyone lost their fucking mind. Like, this is insane. I hate you. Our nation is governed by like actual idiots. Like, what? Like, am I the only one who notices this? And I think you kind of needed like at least a band who like, maybe like you can make arguments about like whether or not they were punk at that time, but like came from that ethos of punk to like step up and say like, I think American Idiot, like probably the most effective protest music of the Bush era. Because I think it really captured what a lot of people were feeling at this time of like, a lot of people kind of hopped onto the like raw Americanism right after 9/11. But then like two years later, they're like, wait a second, like, what are we doing actually? Like, actually, maybe this was a bad idea, but there's still a lot of people like acting like it isn't. Like, I think it comes at a time where everyone's kind of starting to realize like, oh no, like, I think our government really fucked up and like did the wrong thing. And half of America is just acting like they're not noticing it. And I think American Idiot like very much captures that sentiment.
There's another part of it too that I was seeing, which was like the dawn of like cable news was around this time. So just like the amount of like really intense polarization and also just like ever crisper like war footage played a big part too.
I think a lot of the album isn't even a call out to the government. It's more like the media propaganda machine
Yeah.
of like post 9/11. I think the difference between like now and post 9/11 is like post 9/11 was just like every single media outlet just like mobilized in like the kind of like propaganda you only saw during like World War II.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
when like literally like the government like basically tells newspapers like rile them up. Like
Yeah.
it was when like we don't really have that now. And I think you really only get that again like after terrorist attacks or war times.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of the album isn't even like talking about like how the government fucked up. It's like I think a lot of it is anger that, you know, like the media, someone who's supposed to hold the government accountable, has completely just decided to like spread all the propaganda that the government is selling. And then also anger like at your fellow American for buying it. You know,
Yeah.
like I think it's a lot of him being angry, like beyond Bush, just like with the news, with the media. Like this was a time where like the Dixie Chicks were blacklisted for saying that they did
I
not
was about to
support
bring
the
them
Iraq
up.
War.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
the reason why Green Day was able to do it is like thankfully they come from punk. Like
Yeah.
their fan base is one that like they like the fact that they're saying like fuck George Bush, don't go to war. They're not gonna like lose any fans with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas like you see with the Dixie Chicks, like their career to this day has never recovered.
Yeah.
I know. Which
And it's just
is
like
sad.
I don't think there's any like stance that you could take now that would give you that same level of like blacklist and fallout.
That's so true.
No.
Any kind of like political opinion.
Yeah.
At least. Probably just a very crazy time in American history. It's gonna be really interesting to see how like textbooks, I don't know, it just feels like
There won't even be textbooks.
not even textbooks. I mean, it's gonna be really interesting to see how the VR visual,
Yeah.
how the VR goggles talk about this time, what kind of images they scan into your brain, like just
What
from
kind of
9/11 to now.
immersive environments that teach us history.
Exactly.
So I think that as we like wrap up here, just a question that I have based off of talking to you is like, do you think that being an American Idiot fan made you smarter?
I think that being an American Idiot fan. No.
Okay.
No, I don't think it made me smarter, but I do think it just kind of I think it's like a chicken egg situation of like I found the album at a time where I was feeling very lost and lonely, and then I found this band. They're telling you like question everything, and that's like already something you're starting to do at that age. At like entering your teens, you're already starting to question all the authority figures around you, and then you get this album that's like, no, like we're also questioning the authority figures around us, and like you should, and it's good that you do that. And I think it helped me with that. It helped me see that as a good thing. You know, like I grew up in DC. Like my dad worked for he like worked in the Clinton administration. He was like in the education department though. He wasn't like part of the political machine. He was a federal employee.
Yeah.
My mom's a journalist. Like for a really long time, I like very much believed like that even like despite the problems with the Democratic Party, that like our system worked. And I grew up Catholic, and I had to kind of like reject that altogether when I was younger, and then like I'm kind of slowly coming back around to the idea. But I think that album was good for me in that it didn't make me smarter, but it made me more comfortable with questioning authority figures in my life and institutions in which I was raised in, but also like that it's not really like a bad thing. Like you can question things and come back around to them, and it's again like also it's something that I think everyone who grows up like in America goes through, of like you really do as a kid grow up believing like you're in the best country in the world, that like you are the good guys, that your system is like the best system of government. And then like as you get older, like I really like hit a breaking point with like what's happened over the past year, and like I literally look at our system now and I'm like, I think it might be, I'm like, I think it actually might be broken.
Yeah.
Like, I think actually, like, I'm not, like, it's been so hijacked by lobbyists and corporations at this point. Like, I really don't know where we go from here.
Yeah.
And I think it's nice to have an album that speaks to that.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a really long answer. But
No.
what do you
No,
guys,
that was
how do you
great.
guys feel?
Honestly, I have nothing to say that tops that. I feel like hearing about it from someone who like it brought so much joy and like cohesion to your experience as a middle schooler, and also just
in my
like
middle of my
life.
sad song.
It makes me happy. I feel like as someone who also listened to bands kind of that type, but again, more like the MCR side of things, like I get the feeling of being seen. I think with MCR, it definitely, I feel like it fell more into like the mental health side of it than the political side of it. And I think it's really cool to know that there was like a band at that same time that was encouraging like critical thought on systems instead of just like on yourself and the people you know.
This Green Day quote that I remember, it's like from a 90s Billie Joe Armstrong interview. I like wrote it down. I still remember it to this day, but it spoke to me so much as a middle schooler. It was like Billie Joe Armstrong, like literally just as an offhand remark, was like, break the rules, question everything. In the end, you'll have a hell of a story. And me at like 13 years old was like, so like, wait. I think that actually I'm gonna live my life by. But yeah, it's cool. I think that like they're not just saying like break the rules because like fuck your parents. They're like, no, question like what's going on around you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I think is cool.
Yeah, agreed.
And not cringe. And I'm not wearing Green Day shirts ironically, okay? I'm not new to this. I'm true to this.
Oh my God, I've learned so much today.
Yeah, do you have any?
I'm so sorry. I feel like I've talked so much.
We like absolutely needed this to happen.
We needed it.
Because
Because I didn't know enough. Like
neither
literally
of us
our
really knew
main
enough.
our main memory, well, really our only memory with Green Day is that we had a dance recital. We had a jazz dance to Holiday.
Please find the footage.
We have it.
I have
Send
it.
it to me. Send it to me immediately. Thank you guys so much for giving me the opportunity. I feel like with people of not only my generation, but also the younger generation, I thank you for giving me the platform to teach the people about Green Day.
Yes.
I feel that they've had a tough run of it, and I'm glad that I could shed some light and clear things up and clear a few things up about Green Day.
Yes. I mean, I
thank
think
you guys so much.
we also just both love it when people sincerely love the things that they love, even if they can be perceived as cringe. So thank you for teaching us. And this was so interesting. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much again to Keara for joining us this week.
And if you want to follow her on TikTok, which we highly encourage you to do, / on various platforms, all of her information
TikTok
is
only.
in the episode description.
And she does do stand-up in New York quite a bit, so by all means. For more from us, we're on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Sleepover Cinema, and post a full video version of each episode on YouTube every Thursday. You can follow me, Audrey, at Audrey A. Leach on everything.
And you can follow me, Hannah, at Real Judy Garland on Instagram. And if you have not joined our Discord server yet, the link is in our episode description, and you are invited.
You can check out our merch at tupingproductions.com/shop. We have t-shirts, sweatshirts, stickers, and more.
And if you refuse to identify as an American idiot, send this episode to a fellow punk rock friend and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts.
Sleepover Cinema is a production of Evergreen Podcasts, produced, edited, and engineered by us, Hannah and Audrey Leach. Sleepover Cinema is mixed by Sean Will Hoffman with theme music by Josh Perlman Hall. Executive producer is Michael D'Aloia.
See ya!